One colleague of mine, who I have a great deal of respect for, once told me what the purpose of Jewish education was. What's the goal? And when he said it, I didn't quite get it initially because it was a little different than my own understanding of it. But as I thought about it, he was absolutely right. His point was the purpose of a Jewish education is memory making. He wasn't suggesting that Torah study or Hebrew language study or mastery of the prayer book were unimportant. That would be foolish. Of course, he didn't think that. But what he was saying is that developing a Jewish identity is rooted in the creation of these positive Jewish memories. That is why today, when you look at the whole business of Jewish education, so much of it is oriented towards informal learning, Jewish summer camps, youth groups, trips to Israel, as kinds of effective means of Jewish education. They create Jewish memories, which shape our inner life. And they become potential triggers that foster within us a Jewish feeling, a sense of Jewish pride, commonality with Jews around the world. The list goes on, but simply these Jewish memories, this memory making, literally makes people Jews or gives them a sense of identity. As Passover approaches rapidly, memory making is so much part of who I am. My grandchildren are coming from Israel to be with us for Passover. My son and his family are not able to be here, but another time. And coming from Israel with 3 young children from a year and a half to 7, I don't envy my daughter and son-in-law. It's a schlep, and it's expensive, and it's tiring, but the Jewish memories of being with your grandparents stays with a child and hopefully cultivates something that reverberates in their lives. My most vivid memories as a child were the Passover Seders of my grandmother's house. I mean, I went to rabbinical school for 5 years. I don't remember most of it. Seriously, I've been to Israel. You know how many times I go to Israel. I can't count how many times I go to Israel. I remember some of those things. How many services have I led in the congregation? Oh my God. But what do I remember? I remember the Passover Seders. She had beautiful and lovely china and silverware, and she was a great cook. She even made her own gefilte fish. This was serious Judaism. And up until her early 80s, she made her own gefilte fish, which is a whole other topic. I remember the warmth around the Seder table. My complete lack of understanding of what was going on, because my grandfather would take the Haggadah and he'd just read through it quickly. I had no idea what he was doing. But one memory sticks out. I'm sure many of you had variations of the memory. The cup of Elijah is set aside, and it is full of wine. And when and what happens during the cup of Elijah, what technically is happening is you're thinking about the future redemption of the world. We open the door and we welcome in this prophet who is the bearer of good news. He doesn't say anything, of course, but the act of welcoming it in is a message in and of itself. According to tradition, the Messiah can come tonight. That is what Elijah is saying. The perfection of the world is not that far away. Now for memory making. I didn't understand any of that theology, trust me. I had no idea what it was about. So there is this legend, as we know, that Elijah comes in and drinks slightly from the cup. And it's a lovely thing to tell your children to keep them interested in the Seder. So I took this very seriously. The door was opened, we sang Eliyahu Hanavi, we shut the door, we sat down, and then we had this silly discussion. I said, I don't see that the cup has gone down. Alan, you're mistaken. I think it went down a little. Each year was kind of a variation of this discussion. It made no sense whatsoever. I have no idea when we gave it up. And we don't have that discussion at our house, but that's all I remember, looking at Elijah's cup and wondering, did Elijah drink anything? It was this magical moment for, as you know, I have a very rational view of Judaism, of religion. But it is a significant part of Jewish memory making that has shaped who I am. Now, Jane and I, to the best of our ability, have tried to make our own Sidari memory-making experiences for our children and grandchildren. I'm sure many of you have done the same. And you would have to ask my children and grandchildren whether it had an impact on them. I think it did. But as a liberal Jew, as a Jew who's the rabbi of the New Reform Temple that's part of the Reform movement, the cup of Elijah is really problematic. I mean, let's get it straight. It has this magical quality that makes it somewhat out of place in our rational faith. You know, I don't think I would convince anyone, you should be Jewish because Elijah drinks from the cup. We open the door. Is the ghost of Elijah supposed to enter? It's great showbiz, but is it more? And we Reformed Jews do not believe so much in a personal Messiah, but we, as you know, look forward to a messianic time where the world has achieved a level of perfection and equality, not specifically a person, but a process, a time that we all contribute to. Now, my Rebbe, as many of you know, is Rabbi Mordechai M. Kaplan, alav shalom, who taught a method for approaching tradition, and just hold on to this, I'm going to give you 6 big words, and then we'll move on. He called it the process of valued-based functional reinterpretation. Could someone repeat that back to me?
Process of value-based functional reinterpretation.
Thank you. So have you been following Kaplan too?
Well, I'm following you.
Okay. That's a big mistake. Okay. So what are you saying is you don't throw away the ritual, you respect it. You try to understand it in its own context, and then you try to reinterpret it in a way that speaks to you today. Reinterpretation and not elimination. So let me suggest my reinterpretation of the cup of Elijah. Now, why do we need him at the Seder? Elijah has many roles in the Torah and in Jewish tradition. But the one that is most prominent during Passover is taken from the prophetic reading for this Shabbat, which is called Shabbat HaGadol. And I know it very well because Shabbat HaGadol was my bar mitzvah portion. And Shabbat HaGadol was the weekend when I was a senior in rabbinical school where I had to give my sermon to all these rabbis looking at me wanting to hate everything I said. But there's a line in this Haftarah for this Shabbat that is really extraordinary. It says, "Here I will send you Elijah the prophet before the Lord's great and awesome day. And he will reconcile the hearts of the parents to their children and the children to their parents." That's what he will do. He will reconcile the hearts of the parents to their children and the children to their parents. That is his mission. That's his spiritual vocation. What its tradition is saying is the Messiah cannot come unless we succeed in stimulating reconciliation between parents and children. Think how profound that is. It is. Judaism has some great points. This is one of the greatest. You can't redeem the world unless parents and children somehow have an ability to get along with each other. Tradition goes on to say that many of the unanswered questions in Judaism found in the Talmud, including whether there are 4 or 5 cups of wine, will only be resolved when Elijah comes. So he's the great reconciler, but his starting point is the family. Now, friends, Elijah was clear about why he was brought into the world. His mission is quite clear in our tradition, in the Haftarah that's read in Shabbat, of Shabbat HaGadol. Malachi says it, what I just said. He's going to bring reconciliation. So, okay, Rabbi, where am I going with this? What can we who live in 2023 learn from him? I would like to suggest that his knowledge of his spiritual vocation is a model for us. And the question that we should ask ourselves daily, but perhaps most intensely at the Seder, is what is our spiritual vocation? Let me explain what that is. What special mission do we have in this world, each one of us, that no one else could fulfill? Just think about this. I mean, our tradition is based on the idea that every one of us has a unique spark of God in us, and no one has the same spark. So it seems to me that what tradition is telling us is there's something inherently special in each one of us. What is it? How do we cultivate it? How do we bring it out? The spark that gives us individuality and potentiality, the Christian writer Thomas Merton, in his book No Man is an Island, he wrote, this is really so wonderful, he said, "For each one of us there is only one thing necessary to fulfill our own destiny according to God's will, to be what God wants us to be." Now, many years ago, I was doing this, and I haven't been pushing it lately. Maybe I'll start pushing it again. I was doing these, what were called spiritual checkups, and it was based on when I got a degree in pastoral counseling, and what it was as you come in, we reflect upon, have a spiritual checkup. So some took me up on it, some haven't. Maybe people will do that in the future. But one of the questions that I asked in the checkup is, do you believe that your life has a special purpose? That you are here for a specific reason? You can't search the heavens for the answer. We are called upon to look into our own lives and to determine at any given moment in time, what do you and I bring to this world that is unique? That's a spiritual vocation. Vocation comes from the Latin vox, meaning voice. It implies that we are being called by God to a particular state or course of action. It might be an impossible question to answer, but not asking it. Forget about answering it. If you don't ask it, then I think we're selling ourselves short. To search for that spiritual vocation, to me, is important. So, it's not simply about our jobs. Although our professions are very important to us. For example, the job of a physician is to treat illness, or to heal, or to fix. But perhaps the spiritual vocation of a doctor is to bring hope to those who have lost it. Or a teacher teaches chemistry, but her spiritual vocation might be to inspire people, especially those who have low self-esteem, to believe in themselves. Or a business manager has a job to accomplish the task of his section, but perhaps that person's spiritual vocation is to make sure that the standards of integrity and honesty be preserved even in a cutthroat world. I don't know what popped into my mind. I started thinking, what could we do with a house exterminator who kills rodents and bugs? What could be their vocation? Perhaps their vocation is to make sure that people feel safe and secure in their own homes, or to come into a person's house that is lonely and just talk to them. It's interesting. What's something special do you and I bring to this world? And it doesn't have to be complicated. Now, I was thinking of Becky and Nathan Bliss, so I was thinking about you guys. So I'm thinking, okay, you're great musicians. We're not kibitzing, I'm being serious. You're very talented, you're very you produce incredible music. But perhaps your spiritual vocation is to bring joy to people. It's the result of what you do. It isn't what you do, but by doing what you do well, you bring joy. I mean, that's what a spiritual vocation is. And you don't even know you're doing it, and maybe you shouldn't ask that you're doing it, but I think sometimes it's good to see there's a bigger picture in what we do. It's not what we just do every day. There's something bigger that's going on. You know, I'm a rabbi, and my profession includes teaching, preaching, and comforting, hopefully. But as I look at my own life, I've realized my spiritual vocation is to encourage people to be introspective, to dig deep, not to accept surface meanings, not to be afraid to look within themselves. And it's not as if I can give anyone any answers about anything. I don't think I can, but I can encourage people to go searching in their own lives for their own answers. You can rethink your spiritual vocation. People evolve or discover a new one, or realize that you haven't lived up to your spiritual vocation, or you might never figure it out. But that doesn't let you off the hook. And maybe you are already living it, but have not given it its name. Just as Elijah knew his impossible mission to bring reconciliation, not to drink from my Elijah cup, we need to look at our own mission. God gave us life. It is a blessing. We have to figure out what our unique purpose is going to be in the world that God has placed us and given us life. So here is one of the questions that I would ask along with the fourth question of the Seder. On this night of freedom and liberation, when I realize that I am free to be what I want to be, what do I want to be? Why am I here? What mission is God sending me on when I received the life breath that he put within me? What do I bring to the world that is unique? What important role do I have that I have not fulfilled? And it's a relevant question. I don't care if it's the beginning of your life, the middle of your life, the very end of your life. No question is more important than that. And I found these words of Albert Einstein that, who I'm always going back to now, but he has one piece of wisdom after another. He says, "The man who regards his own life and that of his fellow creatures as meaningless is not really unhappy, but hardly fit for life." Shabbat Shalom. Let's continue in